Hello all, this is Mark Wilbur at tushua.com, and today is Phonics Friday number 6. I made a shaving mistake, so I'm missing part of my beard. I injured myself up here. The shop was out of green tea, so I'm stuck with this vile, unhealthy cherry zero, but it's okay, because I get to talk about phonics and help your students understand more English, and I love that. So last time I just went over a bunch of spelling patterns and didn't get into anything related to the actual sounds of words. I was talking about how to spell them instead. So today, as promised, it's all about phonics. So I'm going to talk about ed at the end of a word. How do you pronounce that? Ed, right? No, wrong. Actually, not ed. You don't say like, yesterday I walked to the park. No, 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 no. Sometimes it's like a D sound. Sometimes it's like a T sound. Sometimes it's an id sound. So let's get to it. As usual, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples first and then let you try to figure out the rules, because if we do it that way, you'll remember them a lot better. Okay, I'll break them up by groups to go a bit faster. We'll start with the EDs that sound like a T or a T sound. Walked, skipped, kissed, jumped, danced, mixed, laughed, lumped. Alright, now it's some with a D sound or a D. Hugged, loved, zigged, zagged, odd, bobbed, wronged, stormed. Okay? Now some where the ED sounds like an ID or id. Raided, opted, floated, salted, slated, dated, loaded, lauded, treated. Okay, now, as I said before, even though an E we're all taught sounds like eh and a D is duh or d, we don't want to say ed. It's not walk ed, skip ed, hug ed, raid ed. It's a T sound, and walked, skipped, kissed, jumped, danced, mixed, laughed, and lumped. The commonality between these words is the syllable, or not the syllable, the sound right before the ed is not voiced. So K or K is unvoiced. P or P is unvoiced. S or S is unvoiced. Now, if you don't know what I mean by unvoiced, just take your hand and put it over the front of your throat, right around your Adam's apple, and say the sound. So make a S sound. You shouldn't feel any vibration in your throat. But on the other hand, if it were a Z sound, and you put your hand on your throat and say Z, you'll feel vibration, because that would be voiced. These are not voiced. P, P is not voiced. But a B, on the other hand, B, B, is voiced. So S, not voiced. X is K, but actually it's S right before the ed is unvoiced. Laugh, let's see, that's an F sound, F, unvoiced, in contrast to a V sound, V, where you will feel vibration if you put your hand on your throat. If the ed follows an unvoiced sound, you pronounce it as a T. Say T. If the ed follows an unvoiced sound. Okay, and we'll look at the next set. Hugged, loved, zigged, zagged, odd, bobbed, wronged, stormed. As you may guess, all of these are voiced. G is voiced, V is voiced. Ah, well, actually any vowel sound is voiced. So ah, or ah, or eh, or you, all of those are voiced. If you add a D after, if you add an ed after them, it will be a D sound. Bobbed, b, 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 voiced. voiced, is voiced, is voiced. So if, let's see, we'll say d, if the ed follows a voiced sound. Okay. Then the third group, rated, opted, floated, salted, slated, dated, loaded, lauded, treated. Okay, these are actually fairly simple. You just look right before the ed, and you'll see this is a d, a t, a t, a t, a t, a t, a d, a d, a t. Basically, if there's a t or a d followed by ed, you pronounce it as id. Why is this, you might ask? Well, consider what it would sound like if you tried to say t or d. Raid, raid, up, up. You just, I mean, if you try to put two sounds together and it's not something that you feel is pronounceable, then that's a good sign you've hit up against a true phonics rule. In general, the so-called rules I'm teaching are just patterns. This one's pretty hard and fast. We don't put two T and D sounds next to each other in English. So say id, and this may not be exactly the same sound as an ID. It's not an ud, it's not an ed. It's a schwa sound. I think ID sounds the closest, but just know that that's about the sound. If the ed follows a D or a D. Okay, that's it. Since this was so fun, I'm going to give you a bonus rule. How to pronounce S at the end of a word. Last time, I taught you the single S versus double S spelling rule, and ever since at Phonics 5, I've been thinking about this. So why not go over how to pronounce them? This is another thing a lot of English teachers who've been living in Asia for too long and following rigid phonics curriculums will screw up. If you have an S at the end of some words, it'll be a S sound, but not always. A lot of times it's a Z sound. This is very similar to the T rule. I'll give you some examples first. Books. Notice K is not voiced. Hops. And it doesn't matter if this S is for conjugating a verb, or if it's for making a plural noun, or if it's just in the word to begin with, like class. All of these. Ooh, class. Okay, I take back that last thing. If it's part of the word to begin with, you're on your own. If it's for a verb that's been conjugated, or if it's for a plural noun, then this rule will follow. You follow an unvoiced sound, you'll have an S sound. Hops, books, laps. How about something following an F sound? Well, we had laughed, so laugh, laughs. All of these are S sounds. Then you follow voiced sounds, like g. Then the S has to be a Z, because it's hard to say hugs. So we say hugs, unless we're a crazy EFL teacher who believes that S is always pronounced S. Then we'll tell our class, 2 pens, when it should be pens, because N is voiced, so we make it a Z sound. Dogs and lions. Okay. If it ends in a D or a T, no problem, no problem. Beds, pets. When is it hard to use a Z or a S? Right after a Z or a S. So if you have a bus, can we say 2 buses or 2 buses? No. Then it's an IZ sound. And depending on where you live in the world, you may spell it either of those ways. So, recap. The rules are, say, S if the S follows an unvoiced sound. Say Z if the S follows a voiced sound, and say approximately is if the S follows, well, actually it's going to be an ES, sorry. If the ES follows, don't need quotation marks there, follows an S or a Z, like quizzes or places, or, and notice place doesn't even have an S. Place is a CE, but in terms of phonics, it's still a S sound, and we're not going to say like two place or two places. It's going to be places because it follows an S sound. Okay, I think this is good. This is enough for a phonics video. It's actually kind of a bit long with Phonics Friday. I'm sorry if any of you were hoping to blast through the whole thing in 10 minutes, but I think this is pretty valuable and this is pretty useful, and it's also worth teaching your students, whether if they're 8-year-old kids or if they're 30-year-old business English people. Just fixing this one thing helps out with a lot of phonics issues, helps you sound a lot more natural, and that is awesome because if you sound more natural, then you're easier for native speakers to talk to. I think it was clear, but just to make sure you've totally got it, when I was saying you have to tell if a sound is voiced or not, put your hand over your throat. It's like this. Put your fingers right here and then make the sound. For example, we'll say arm. One arm, two arms. The last sound in arm is the M. So if you say you should feel all kinds of vibration here. If you're saying no vibration, no vibration, z, lots of vibration. So arm has vibration at the end, two arms, whereas lip, like 1, 2, lip, no vibration. So two lips has an S sound. This is a little bit controversial, but in my opinion, this is one reason or one situation where it's really good if you use some of the students' native language in a class. It doesn't matter if they're little kids or if they're like 40. They still, if they're learning something this basic, they probably don't have the English to completely understand what you're saying. Even if you think they understand, even if you get everyone to do this, there's a good chance that you'll be leaving behind some of the weakest students, or at the very least that you'll be using a lot more class time if you're trying to do it all in what's not their native language. For my students, this was in Taiwan. It was very fast. I would just, so they'd speak Chinese, but I'd just say, 把你的手放在这边. Now, everyone say, and they knew everyone, they knew say. So everyone say, 喉咙有没有震动? Like, is there any vibration in your throat? And they'll be like, 没有. Like, no vibration. I'll be like, yep, that's good. Now everyone say, 有没有震动? And all the kids would be like, 有. And they, like, I'd see their faces light up, and I knew immediately that they had it. And they'd say, yes, there was vibration, there wasn't in this other one. And in total, to do this whole thing, it took, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. It's, I mean, in a sense, class time is the most valuable thing in the world because there's one of you, there are a whole bunch of them, so whatever time you spend trying to mime something or draw it on the whiteboard or whatever to avoid speaking their first language is time that's being spent not only for you but for everyone. So it's my belief that the goal when you're teaching a foreign language should not be to minimize the amount of their language that they hear. The goal should be maximize the amount of English they hear that they understand. For example, like the fastest I've ever learned a foreign language was probably when I was learning Japanese in college. I did an intensive 10-week class over summer and got a whole year's worth of credit for it. and then I did the normal Japanese 2 during the school year, and then the next summer I did another intensive. And during this whole time, I had like a Japanese roommate, a whole bunch of buddies, Japanese buddies I played basketball with, guys I was drinking with, and just like all kinds of Japanese everywhere. And I got from 0 to, well, no American's truly at 0. I knew like Nintendo and sushi and ninja and that kind of Japanese. But I got from as close to 0 as you could be, and got to where I could understand movies and I could talk to 50-year-old tourists who were lost and answer the phone and talk to my roommate's grandmother calling from Japan in 15 months. So I was thinking, what are the odds I could have done this if my teachers had this misled idea that we're just going to speak Japanese in class, no English at all. I don't care if these Americans can understand us, we're just going to use Japanese because it's a Japanese class. I don't think there's any way I would have made the same progress. I would have gotten a lot of input, but I wouldn't have understood it. And, I would have had some misconceptions, and I would have been less motivated, and there would have been a number of differences. Obviously, the younger someone is, the less their first language will help them. So if you're dealing with a 3-year-old or a 1-year-old, then definitely like all English all the time. But if they're already old enough they can read something in their own language, and they're already like totally fluent in it, then there's a lot that you could be leveraging to speed things up. Anyway, all of that aside, I'm just saying this is something to consider if your school and your curriculum and so forth allows it. Okay. Anyway, that's it for Phonics Friday number 6, and I look forward to number 7 next week. See ya!